elections in Africa.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
Welcome back. This is Kivumbi 2022. I'm Eric Latif. My guest this evening, Frank Mukwanja, Executive Director of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, Kenya, and we are discussing the multi-sectoral consultative forum on election preparedness chaired by the Chief Justice, which seems to have just brought all the issues to the fore. Frank, as we're discussing this, you're saying the fact that the Chief Justice would then sit here would expose her to bias, which would lead to questions in court in case of litigation, where if it's about the preparations that were made for the election and somebody was taking a petition to court based on that, they would say then one of the people who participated in the preparation for the election is the Chief Justice.
Correct.
But you've also said that it's recognized in law that the judiciary is part of the electoral management bodies in the country, without even saying that without the Chief Justice, it's expected that the head of that body is the one that is overseeing everything that is mandated to it by law. So where do you separate those roles? And you've said perhaps the Chief Justice should send another representative to this multi-sectoral forum. Who would that be?
We need a cure to this process. We need the multi-sectoral forum. It's a good thing. The challenge that we have about it is the role of the Chief Justice. What we need to cure it is disband it, reconstitute it, and have the judiciary represented by an alternative officer and not the Chief Justice. And then secondly, have the chair of IEBC chairing the multi-sectoral forum, because that is the work of IEBC given by the Constitution in Article 88, the functions of IEBC. Those are the same ones that are stipulated clearly in the terms of reference. Asking the chair of the IEBC to play second fiddle to any other forum is actually more criminal than asking the Chief Justice, just because of seniority, not to be part of that consultative forum, not to chair it, but allow an alternative officer like the Registrar of Judiciary to be part of that, and she will be able to get the briefing. As long as the Chief Justice is sitting in those meetings and chairing them, she's bound to weigh in on issues that may catch up later with her in the course of the petitions. That is what we're saying. We need the multi-sectoral forum. The judiciary is part of the election management bodies. There's nothing wrong about them being part of this team, but there's everything wrong about the Chief Justice chairing it. There's everything wrong about the IEBC chair playing second fiddle to any other organ, any other body, when the Constitution gives him the mandate to do that.
Let me throw a spanner in the works here then. So apart from the multi-sectoral consultative forum, there's a technical working committee on election preparedness. In this committee, the judiciary is represented through the Judicial Committee on Elections, which the Judicial Committee on Elections is chaired by a judge of the Supreme Court, presently Mohammed Ibrahim. So would we say that it's the same thing that would happen here? Because Justice Ibrahim has participated in election preparedness, then any petition that comes before him, he should recuse himself?
Let us look at the terms of reference of the multi-sectoral forum and the technical working group. All right? You asking the IEBC to be part of a meeting that makes critical decisions about the process. The technical working group is to be able to support the processes like the electoral reform agenda that we have, various policies delaying, you know, in Parliament and others. So we must be able to clarify the two. that in instances where the Chief Justice is involved, the perceptions are extremely, and the level of responsibility is extremely high that we must not confuse. Where as long as the Chief Justice, as long as the chair of the IEBC is being asked to go to a meeting where they will have to take instructions from other quarters and not independent decisions that are canvassed at adversary towers by the commissioners, then we're sending the wrong signals. Let us be very clear about that.
I get you, and one of the reasons why we are glad that we have you in the studio is because you have participated in matters of democracy in the country for many years. As the ED of Center for Multi-Party Democracy Kenya, you sit at a table where you have participated in the matters of elections, election monitoring, and looking at our electoral reforms. Now, let me read the mandates of this committee. Number one, promote consultation, collaboration, coordination in preparation for general elections. Does that interfere in any way with the work of the IEBC?
You see,
it's promoting consultation, collaboration, and coordination.
The whole idea, Latif, is about perceptions. Because this is
perceptions aside,
this is a political...
Strictly speaking,
yes.
Does this interfere with the mandate of the IEBC?
It does, as long as it's about getting the election management bodies to do election work, which is a clear function of IEBC. And that is why we're asking, let any of that be done by IEBC that has the constitutional mandate to preside over elections.
I'm not actually talking about whether it's chaired by the Chief Justice or this forum. By promoting consultation, collaboration, and coordination in preparation for general election, does it interfere with the work of the IEBC?
Yes.
Whether it's chaired by Wafula Chebukati, the chairman of IEBC, or
for what purpose are you doing the coordination and promoting it?
It's because you just said that it's a very important organ to have. And this is what it's doing. It's promoting that coordination and consultation.
You're doing it for purposes of elections.
Yes.
The only constitutionally mandated body to preside, to plan and preside over and manage and conduct elections is IEBC. As long as it is IEBC leading that process with the other election management bodies getting involved, because they need to be coordinated, then we are heading in the right direction. But supplanting IEBC in this process becomes a problem, because then you're denying them their fair share of mandate to preside over the processes that are mandated by the Constitution.
Okay. The other part of it, the mandate, is advising the government on the requirements for elections.
Who is planning for the elections? Who's come up with the election operation plan? It is IEBC.
True.
Who knows what is required when? Who's done the budgets? It's IEBC. Right. So how do you then take that technical work and the constitutional mandate away and put it under some win? And it's the whole idea is not that we do not need this forum. It is very useful, and I started by saying that. But the leadership of this must be retained to IEBC, because that is their function.
Frank,
the other election management bodies,
taking at the same time. On the one hand, you're saying it's important to have the body and that it's needed, it's crucial. When you look at the job that it's doing, you start saying that it's taking away the mandate.
Led by. If you give that work to be led by someone else, you're creating an alternative forum where IEBC is playing second fiddle to that forum. But when you have a process where IEBC is involved and it's at the head of the table and the other election management bodies are involved, then you are actually achieving that coordination for efficient preparation of elections. But where you're asking that the chair and then sit aside, listen to the others, then they are not in charge. We're talking about independence, and independence is presiding over those functions. All right, so that they can be the one asking that we need support here, we need support. I've given an example that we need security, for instance. When police officers are seconded and deployed at the polling station, they do not report to their respective commanders. Their commander becomes the presiding officer and the returning officer. What wisdom informed that? Because these officers become election officers under the independence of IEBC. As long as the multi-sectoral forum is chaired by IEBC, then that is fine, because then they will be executing their constitutional mandate with the independence and the perceptions that are required to increase public trust. When that is put aside, and I agree entirely with the idea about IEBC withdrawing, let this forum be disbanded, reconstituted. And the only explanation, Latif, that we have been given is that the Chief Justice is chairing because of seniority, which in terms of state protocol is fine. But in terms of managing an election, in terms of looking at the Constitution and the powers, there is nothing that gives the Chief Justice the power to be forced over that responsibility. Let IEBC do its job. Let the other election management bodies avail themselves to IEBC to serve, so that IEBC can be able to coordinate, manage, and prepare an efficient, transparent, accountable, credible process.
There are those then who would argue that if you look at the two organs, we have the Consultative Forum and then we have the Technical Working Committee. The Consultative Forum is sort of the summit. And the summit, just like the summit of the heads of state of the East African Community, brings in the heads of states, right? The heads of the various agencies. And that's why they sit, they listen, they consume information coming from the Technical Committee, they listen, they give direction, or they give advice. And then the advice then is taken. So at this point, if the forum is meeting, and yes, it's chaired by the Chief Justice, which I hear your argument in terms of there is no law that gives her the mandate to chair anything with regards to election preparedness or management. But here she is as the senior most member in this summit. She sits and chairs it. Does it take away the job that they have done? Does it necessarily take away the important job that they have done by meeting, by coordinating all the EMBs to prepare for an election?
Again, Latif, the role of the chair of such an important undertaking, we cannot just say she will sit there, listen, and of course, and we're speaking about this already having listened to some of the comments that the Chief Justice has made, in regard to the ill-preparedness of IEBC. And that tells you that we're really playing with fire, because the most important function of the Chief Justice in the electoral process is that she is the umpire at the end of the day when the presidential elections and outcome is disputed. It is also a tradition and good practice that judges restrain themselves from commenting or getting their opinions publicly known about matters that will potentially reach their courts, and they will preside over those matters wearing their gowns and their wigs. And this is what we need to protect: the independence of the judiciary and the independence of the Constitutional Commission, that is IEBC. And that is the real major issue and the elephant in the room, that the only reason we've been given, and we must emphasize this, that there is no problem about the involvement of the judiciary. It is given. But the only reason we've been given why the Chief Justice must chair is because of seniority. That can be cured and save the country from unnecessary political perceptions leading into a transition election that you will hear we are not going to court because we already know what the Chief Justice thinks about these issues that we are raising. Yeah. The only way we can go to court is when the Chief Justice will recuse herself from this process. And that does not really serve to improve our multi-party democratic standards if we are not going to be keen and articulate these issues. The idea of efficient coordination of election management bodies so that we can improve in terms of organizing, in terms of planning, in terms of management, in terms of conducting the general election is given. And it's one of the weaknesses that is pointed out in the 2017 general elections report. The proposal to cure it is important, but the idea of compelling the Chief Justice to sit there to chair it is a wrong one. The solution is disband, reconstitute, let the judiciary be represented by an alternative officer, let the Chief Justice get the necessary briefing, let her stay away from this process. The other cure is let the IEBC chair this forum so that they are not just to be deemed in charge, but they're actually seen to be in charge, so that we can retain the independence of both the judiciary when they are arbitrating this matter, and also the independence of the IEBC when they are planning and managing and conducting the general elections.
Frank Mukwanja, thank you very much for joining us. Frank is the Executive Director of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy Kenya. This is Kivumbi 2022. Don't go away, it goes on. Shortly we have Ken Mijung with the news, and then he'll have more interviews on Kivumbi 2022. Thank you very much. Good evening.
KTN News. Get the whole story.